Namaskar, this is Akhilesh Bhargav. Welcome to Tit-Bits on Business and Finance with me. The government's tendency to resort to tax terrorism and coercive collection of tax demands remains unabated and unmitigated. The bosses in Delhi set up unrealistic and ambitious tax collection targets, and harsh recovery measures are then initiated by the field officers in order to meet these most unrealistic targets. It was thus a surprise when the finance minister gave the analogy of the elephant and the rice fields in her budget speech and even in her post-budget interview. She said that it is better that an elephant is satisfied with a small offering of rice than it enter a rice field where it will trample and destroy much more rice, and it will even trample the field itself. The rice here, of course, is the taxes, the elephant is the government, and the field is the hapless taxpayer. The hapless taxpayer is at the mercy of the government and can be crushed and trampled at will if it chooses to. In her post-budget interview, she actually said that the government would be satisfied with what it gets by way of tax collections and would not become the elephant that hurts the farm, that hurts the taxpayer. In other words, the government would do with what it got. This most unusual statement of the finance minister is actually music to the ears of the harassed taxpayer, who's most of the time at the receiving end of very coercive, compulsory recovery measures, even in respect of the most unjust tax demands, without the tax department waiting for the outcome of appeals, where historically it loses most of its cases. This government has been heavy on promise, light on performance. And the question that comes is, will this promise of the finance minister that it will not be the elephant that runs into the field pass down to the last man in the chain, which is the tax recovery officer, and will he be satisfied with that offering of rice which is just and will not resort to all kinds of unjust tax recovery measures? We think that this might not happen because there is a fiscal weakness at the moment. Tax collections have been suffering. There has been a clear slowdown in the economy and revenues are not going to be up to the mark, and the government's expenditure remains as it is. Perhaps they will continue to resort to their coercive recovery measures that they are very used to. The fact remains is that there is a very direct correlation between the economic growth rate of the country and tax collection. To state the obvious, when the economy is growing at a fast pace, tax collections remain very robust and healthy, and the converse happens when there is a slowdown, and we are witnessing a slowdown at the moment. There is a slowdown in the economy sector after sector. If automobiles are struggling, so are auto components, so is the NBFC sector, so are banks, so is steel, so is telecom. And all of these are heavy taxpayers, both indirect taxes as well as direct taxes. These sectors, if they were healthy and growing, the situation would have been much better. But there is a slowdown. And this slowdown has been reflected in last year's tax collection itself. Last year, the government was not able to meet any of its tax collections, whether in respect of GST or in respect of income tax. In the financial year 18-19, the government's GST collections were short of target by 22%, and income tax collections were short of target by 8.4%, and which is despite the government's instructions to collect tax at any cost, which is despite the fact that tax officers had gone amok and berserk and they were resorting to the harshest possible measures in order to recover taxes. As I said, even if they be unjust, even if they be untenable and illegal, by the very fact that the government tends to lose most of its tax cases and appeals, but the tax officer never waits for the outcome. So despite such a focus on recovery at any cost, The government was not able to recover its taxes last year, and that's because there has been a clear slowdown in the economy. This slowdown continues. The slowdown that started last year has been continuing quarter after quarter, and it's been so at the moment. The March quarter was its slowest growth in the last 17 quarters. India's economy today is growing at a 5-year low. So this slowdown continues, and the slowdown in tax collection will also continue. But despite the slowdown, not willing to recognize this slowdown, the government has increased its tax collection targets for the current year by 18%. It makes no sense. It has no connect with the ground reality. Corporate profits are suffering. MSME sector is stressed out. The large enterprises are in a beeline to the IBC. Bankruptcies are galore. And GST collection in May dipped again. Income tax collection as against a target of 18% was a mere 6% growth in the first advance tax installment. So, despite this slowdown, the government has set an ambitious tax collection target. Where is the scope? Where is the scope to fulfill the finance minister's promise of the government being satisfied with what it collects and the elephant not getting into the field and trampling the field? The fact remains is these kind of coercive measures, according to us, will continue. The field officers will continue to be on what we call a witch hunting to resort to collection of taxes anyhow. We think there is going to be a failure of the promise of the finance minister. The fact remains is that the government has a huge expenditure target. The reality also is there is a slowdown in the economy, and as we said, there is a fiscal slippage. The fact of the government is that it has been resorting to maintain its fiscal deficit target by resorting to any measure. So last year we saw over 1 lakh crores of borrowings of the government, which were borrowings of PSUs given to the government, but they were not called government borrowings. And in this manner, the government said that it has been able to achieve its fiscal deficit target of 3.4%. But despite resorting to all this financial jugglery and statistical jugglery, the reality that we would see on the ground is that the government will not be able to get its revenues. And if it doesn't get its revenues, while its expenses continue, you can be sure there will be a witch hunting, there will be coercive recovery of taxes. And the most harassed is going to be the MSME sector. It has been facing coercive recovery of taxes for the last 2-3 years in particular. Its financial strength is gone. It does not have infinite resources to dip into to meet the government's coercive tax collection targets. There is a limit to which the government will be able to flog this horse, and this horse could soon be dead, as we are seeing the stress in the MSME sector. So it's nice to hear that the finance minister says that the elephant will not enter the field and the government would be satisfied with the tax collection that it gets and it would not hurt the enterprises. But we think there is a huge disconnect between what she says and what the field officers will do, as we are witnessing that tax collections this year are also headed to being much below the targets. We really hope that this promise is fulfilled. It will be good for the MSME sector. It will help them to start reviving themselves. And if the government chooses not to, you can witness a lot more closures in the MSME sector. This is Akhilesh Bhargav signing off till we meet again. Namaskar.
HW News Network today is a year and a half old. Thanks to your support, thanks to your love, we've grown. We require your support a little more. What we request you to do is to download our free app. Our app is in Hindi, English and Marathi. We promise to update you with the latest news, views, analysis, interview. We also have a live TV going in that. If you download our app, we will get advertisers. And if we get advertisers, we'll get revenue. We get revenue, we can serve you better. So once again, please do support us. Please download our app. Namaskar.